Welcome to The Kingstonian, a podcast that profiles people who are passionate about what they do for a living, what organization they belong to, or the community they are a part of. Here is your host, Dave Cunningham.
Thank you, Steve. Hello, everyone, and welcome. Back in 2003, Ryan Malcolm became a household name as the winner of the very first season of Canadian Idol. During a whirlwind year of national fame, he hit the stage performing with music icons like Elton John and Kelly Clarkson. Raised just west of Kingston, Ryan is the son of John Malcolm, who joined me on this podcast back in 2016. In the 2 decades since his Idol win, Ryan has carved out a rich and varied path from playing music to performing as Buddy Holly, to managing a restaurant in Costa Rica, to building a career in real estate. We cover all that and more in this conversation recorded from his home in Prince Edward County in mid-April 2025. Brian, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks very much for having me. I'm excited to be here, Dave.
I'm excited to have this conversation. We're here in 2025.
Yeah.
And you still apparently have a love for making music.
I do,
and
yes.
You also have developed a passion for the real estate business, and we'll get to all of that. But here's a question I'd like to start with.
Sure.
Let's go back 20 plus years. You're on the TV sound stage, and your name has just been announced as the first ever winner of Canadian Idol.
Right.
What's the first thing that popped into your mind?
Wow. I don't think I believed it at first. It didn't sink in because building up to that was just such a whirlwind of new experiences and craziness that came with that. I didn't know what to say. I thought we were off the air right after Ben had mentioned it, so I was already kind of dazed and celebrating, and they're like, you still have to sing. We're live on and I had no idea. So it was just a special moment. And, to have my folks come up on stage and kind of share in that once in a lifetime opportunity was pretty special.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk about how you got there. You were born and brought up in Amherstview, which is a small community about 15 minutes west of Kingston.
Yep.
And your dad is John Malcolm. And for those who may not know, I did one of these podcasts with him about 8.5 years ago.
Yeah.
Had a good time with the podcast. He was a great guy to talk to. And sadly, he passed away in 2023.
Yes.
Can you give us a sense as to what kind of influence he had on you?
Yeah, I mean, I owe everything musically to my father for sure. From my talent that I got through him, also my love for music. Growing up in the household, there was always music playing. He definitely got me onto the 50s and 60s pretty early, so that sort of steered my direction as to what I would start out as an artist. And we always had fun. I can remember the first time I sang with him. I was about 8 years old, and he was like, "Oh, wow, okay, well we're going to have to somehow incorporate this in the show." And so we learned, I think it was Diana by Paul Anka and Crazy by Patsy Cline. So definitely had a bit of a higher range back then. But it was pretty special. I can remember it, vividly, working on those songs with my dad at the house and just, gearing up for our first gig as a duo at that time.
He was a big Frank Sinatra buff.
He really was, yeah. I mean, and it fit him so well. He'd tell me stories, about growing up in Montreal in the 70s and 80s even. They'd be out for dinner and people would think he's Paul Anka. And of course, he knows Paul Anka's songs. So he'd get up and sing and they're like, "Oh, that is Paul Anka," So it was funny. I think he'd get, some comped meals once in a while and some flowers from some people. And it was pretty funny. He had a pretty good chuckle about that. But he'd been doing it his whole life. So, I mean, he was always an entertainer. Whether he's selling cars or singing or serving dinner, he was always had that entertainer smile for sure.
Now, he started off selling cars, and when he moved to Kingston, he was still doing that. But eventually, he and your mom and your stepmom eventually got into the restaurant business. Now,
Yeah,
was that
that's
something he
true.
did before, or what was the impetus there?
Yeah, it's not something he did before. I mean, he grew up with his music and his bands and then cars. He's always been into cars. Um, and I think when he remarried, my stepmother, Deb, she was going through to get her Red Seal for being a chef. And being the ever entrepreneur that my father was, I think it just kind of went hat in hand, you know, let's try and do something on our own. And it's actually started with a place called the Potato Patch, which was a little chip truck in Amersfoort. And my brother Regan is an incredible artist, and he drew these, crazy logo characters, Mr. and Mrs. Spud, I think they were called. I'm probably getting that wrong. And then Deb made like these costumes, so we had like life-size characters, and it was just, never a dull moment growing up in that household for sure. But yeah, that was sort of his first foray into the restaurant business.
Now, he saw that as an opportunity to get himself and later you and your brother up on stage to perform in the restaurants, correct?
Right, correct.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's how they built the skills that you eventually exhibited when you were on Canadian Idol and going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely was lucky to have that decade of experience, more so I would say than a lot of the kids that were on Idol, at least in my year. We sang 4 nights a week at the Ramada when we had the restaurant there, and we had one on Princess Street as well. And it was such a learning experience, and becoming a seasoned performer at 17, is not something most people can say, but because of my dad, it just kind of, fell into place. And yeah, it was crazy.
Now, you went to high school in Napanee, which is a community even further west. It's about, what,
Yes.
35 minutes west of
Yep.
Kingston. Around the same time, I would think, as Avril Lavigne.
Yeah, I think I was a year or two ahead of Avril, and it definitely followed me. I mean, especially after Idol, everywhere I went, people asked, do you know Avril Lavigne? I heard you guys went to school together. And I've met her a few times. I did meet her at the Juno Awards one year, I think when we were out west, and she was lovely. I mean, she's super talented. Obviously, she's had an incredible 2 decades now long career, just in such a tough business. And as a Canadian, would is even tougher. So she really has just done incredible things.
Now, let's get to Canadian Idol. So, whose idea was it to apply to audition for that show?
Yeah, I think I remember seeing or hearing a Kelly Clarkson song. I think it was maybe Miss Independent or something, one of her first singles, and I was like, oh, that's a pretty good, that's a banger. And I kind of did some research. I'm like, oh, American Idol, what's that? And so I looked into it and I was like, oh, if they ever did that in Canada, um, I think I should try out because at that time I had so many people in my life saying, what are you doing with your music? You're just, you've got to do something. You're this and that. And it's a lot of pressure, having talent and being successful are two completely different things. There's so
Yeah.
many talented musicians that never get the time of day. So I felt a lot of pressure, and I remember saying, okay, I'll go and try this, and I think I could do okay at it. I definitely didn't think I would win, but yeah, I think that was myself, and my stepmom definitely supported my decision, and I think she took me shopping, and we got some pretty hilarious now clothing for the on-camera stuff to, in case I got that far. But yeah, it was just a whim.
Now, when you got into the process of applying for the show and you had to sing, did you pick the songs or were they chosen for you?
Yeah, so there was a list of songs that were approved for television. They had to buy the rights. And so they gave us this list. And luckily for me, I knew probably half of them already just from my repertoire with my dad and my brother Regan. And so I think I did Smoke Gets in Your Eyes by the Platters, which is an odd song for an 18-year-old. How old? I was 22. Jeez. Odd song for a 22-year-old to sing a cappella. But again, that's the influence from my dad. And then I think I did a CCR number. So yeah, it certainly helped having that repertoire in my arsenal.
What was the pressure like as you moved through the various levels?
It was pretty intense. And like I said, I was 22 at that time, and there were 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds. So I can only imagine how hard it would have been for them. Immense pressure. Even before you get to the live performance, they film for like a month. And so, having to do that day in and day out in Toronto was extremely excruciating because you don't know if you're going to get called or if you're going to get sent home. So it's just very, very difficult. So I can only imagine how hard it was for the other guys.
So you end up winning the competition and they release a single that I
Mhm.
gather was the song written for the winner. Is that the way that works?
Correct. So about 2 weeks before the finale, they had sent us a single, myself and Gary. They had us both go into the studio to record it so that they'd have it printed and ready to go on the shelves the next day. And it was Something More was the name of the song. And Chris Perry, Adam Alexander, and Rupert Gale, I want to say. I can't believe I remember that. Those were the three writers, phenomenal writers. They've written hits for, um, you know, Backstreet Boys, all this crazy stuff. And so they sent it to Gary and I. We went to the studio and we recorded our own version. I remember hearing Gary's version thinking, man, that really suits your voice. He's got a very soulful, textured tone to his voice. And yeah, I mean, I won and that was released to radio the next day. So
And it went to number one and stayed there for 13 weeks on the Canadian charts.
correct. Yeah, it was a big, big commercial success for sure. And it's a great song. I still sing it when I'm performing. People come up to me and tell me a story. Oh, it was their wedding song, or it was played at, I've had some people say it was, they played it at their mother's funeral. So it's that means something for sure as an
Mhm.
artist to hear that directly from people.
Now, the album that I was a part of sold really well as well, and you
Yeah,
were nominated for a Juno Award for the best pop album,
yeah,
and you did a fair amount of touring at that particular point. Now,
right.
in your mind, were you looking at parlaying this success into a longer term career in music?
Yeah, so I'd already been doing it for 20 years ish. And so for me, it felt like an extension of what I'd been doing since I was 8. Just being a professional musician and singer. And with Idol, no one knew what to expect. Nothing like that had ever been done in Canada. So it I would say it was definitely it was the most popular television show in the history of the country at that time. Up until that time, there'd never been anything that remotely came. Not that I had anything to do with that, but we had no idea what to expect. So for me, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is I can't go anywhere without 100 people coming up to me, either loving me or hating me. That's the beauty of the industry, right? Especially when you're on TV and on commercials every 30 seconds, you kind of ram down people's throats. So I had a lot of people come up to me say, look, we're tired of seeing your face. Like I have people come up to me, just random strangers saying, oh my God, you like we couldn't get away from you for the whole summer of, 2003. So I didn't know what to expect, but for the first year, it was a whirlwind. I was, touring over in Europe and all over Canada, playing with like, crazy artists. Kelly Clarkson did multiple shows with her, Elton John, Spice Girls, Bon Jovi, all this weirdness that came into my life at the time. And I thought, I think I can parlay this into something lasting. And, you know, as much as I tried to keep up with that pop stardom, when you're at the top, there's literally only one way you're going.
Yeah.
And it happened. And I remember, you know, it was a great ride, and I had the band afterwards, and we can get to that after if you want. But I remember when the season 2 of Idol came out, and my manager's like, "Yeah, this is like last year. This is the new year. There's a new guy, right?" So it was pretty hard to adjust to that, and I made some mistakes and some growing pains because it's a lot of pressure for someone to deal with that when you don't really have a proper support system. Yeah, I learned a lot that first year.
There's a whole lot about the business that most of us don't understand, and because we haven't been through it, but I can understand what you're saying. You mentioned the band. So, and I think it was 2006, you put together the band called Low Level Flight
Right.
and you recorded an album. And
Yeah.
then you recorded another album and you were signed to a record deal by the Times of India,
Yeah, that's right.
which is, and you toured and you did really well over in India. And I'm curious
Yeah.
as to how that all evolved.
So we assigned a record deal in Toronto for the band's first album with Fontana North, which was a distribution company out of Maple Music. Maple has a ton of Canadian talent. And Matt Smallwood, who was working there at the time, had a connection with promoters in India. And the Times of India is this multi-billion dollar conglomerate. They own like 30 newspapers. And India has like five newspapers a day. So you get one in the morning and in the evening, and that's how crazy the population there is. Um, and they're looking for Canadian talent. They said, look, we're going to do a 3 week tour. We're going to send you guys to India. They're going to, print off 10,000 copies of the album. And it's the Wild West over there in terms of the music industry, right? It's not as organized as it is here because it's relatively new as a business. And so we got there and we were already number one on MTV. I was like, how is this even possible? Like, we haven't even been there yet. But it was just this massive machine behind the band. And it was crazy. We'd go to shows sold out, screaming fans, mostly men at that, because I guess certain cultures, it's mostly men that go out at night to the bars and very different than here. I know India's changed a lot since we've been there, but it was delightful. The people were incredible. And what an eye-opening experience to just, go to the completely new territory for us was incredible.
Now, speaking of going to someplace completely different, I heard that you went on vacation to Costa Rica.
Hmm.
And you decided at some particular point that you wanted to run a restaurant in Costa Rica.
Yeah, that's right. My wife and I, my girlfriend at the time, we went in December, I think of 2010, and we fell in love with Costa Rica and just the people. And particular spot in particular, one area in particular was called La Fortuna. And there's a little town, a little village in the jungle called El Castillo where we had stayed. And the owner of the bed and breakfast, a gentleman out of the US, said, I'm going to be building a restaurant. And, I'm always thinking about how can I, how can I change my life and do, something else that's interesting. And so before we had left, we had broached the idea of, well, we'll sell everything in Canada. My wife's a chef. We'll move down and we'll open this restaurant for you. And that's kind of how it happened. It was, you know, an odd thing, but my wife tells me the one thing I don't lack is confidence. So I'll just go out on a whim and say, hey, I'll run your restaurant. Where most people would probably be like, I'm sure he wouldn't want that or what. I lack that ability to filter my thoughts. So sometimes it pays off. And in that instance, it really did.
But not only did you sing in your parents' restaurants, you
Yeah.
actually worked there too. So you did have some experience in the business.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'd been serving tables up until Canadian Idol. So had quite a bit of experience doing that, which served us very well down there. And it was great. We'd have a lot of people from Canada going, wait, what are you doing here? So it was a nice little story for people that are on vacation. And we have lifelong friends out of that. We've got friends from Costa Rica that come up here to Canada. And we still go down like at least once a year just to see everybody. And it's an incredible country.
Somewhere along the line, when you were down there, you heard about this play that was being staged in Kingston. And for those people listening, there is a service club in Kingston called the Kinsman.
Right.
And every year they ran some sort of play to raise money for all the charities that they work with. And the play that they were going to be staging this particular year was the Buddy Holly story.
Right.
And that sparked your interest, I would think.
It did.
And do you know much about the backstory as to how this play evolved initially?
Um, the Kingston production of it or
The play
the actual
itself.
writing of it?
Yeah. Was it who wrote the play? Do you know?
I think it was family members of I think it was someone involved with the estate had written this and then sold the rights all over the world because there are productions all over in London. Broadway has done the Buddy Holly story. So it happened quite a while ago. I think it was written in like the 90s or something, and
Okay.
I could be wrong. Someone can correct me. But yeah, I mean, when Kingston they reached out to me and said, "Would this something you'd be interested in?" I said, "Oh, hell yeah! This is like, this is the role I feel like I was born to play. Skinny guy with glasses. Although I did need some help with my hair." But it was great. Moira Davies is a local legend, in the theater arena there in Kingston. So being able to work with her was amazing. Ian Juby, my high school vocal teacher, who failed me, rightly so, because I was such a little know-it-all back in high school. He was the musical director on Buddy Holly, I think for both runs. We did it twice. And Ian's an incredible musician. Dave Barton, he was the lead guitar player in that. So just a wonderful experience to sell out the Grand Theater. I think it was like 20 times is such an amazing feeling and a testament to Moira and her ability, to get these grassroots productions to, I would say, Toronto, standards. Like it was, on minimal budget, that show rocked,
Mhm.
like really, it really rocked.
Yeah, I saw the show, and the show featured local actors, correct?
Yep.
And
Correct.
and it was run twice. It was run in 2010 and brought back
Yep.
again in 2013,
Yes.
correct?
Yeah,
Uh,
and I think part of that was just, the success of the first one, that said, why not? Let's do it.
yeah.
And it was a no-brainer for me. If Moira called me tomorrow and said, "Look, do you want to do it again?" I'd be like, "Absolutely. Let's do it." I'll dust off the wig.
A question about doing this particular show. So, for those people who might not know, Buddy Holly was a big rock star in the late 1950s. He
Mhm.
wasn't around long in terms of his influence in the business, but
Right.
he's from a different era. And I'm wondering if you ever thought about the differences in being a singer-songwriter back in the 50s versus being a singer-songwriter now.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I mean, I would say now the competition now is far, far greater. There are
Yeah.
so many more artists that, due to technology, can have a voice. You can record your whole album on your laptop now, and it'll be studio quality.
Mhm.
Platforms like Spotify give virtual unknowns now an opportunity to share their music. So it's definitely more competitive. But what Buddy Holly did was incredible. He was, really the godfather, I would say, of a certain style of rock and roll,
Mhm.
more so than Elvis at that time. Buddy Holly was writing his own. Elvis wasn't really, a songwriter as much, I would say, as Buddy Holly was. Elvis was a performer, an incredible singer, all that. He was the full package, but Buddy was like a grassroots rocker and started playing country, and people thought he was black. They thought he was a black artist. They hired him at the Apollo, and when he arrived, they're like, "Wait a minute, you're a white kid from Texas? No, 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 this is that's not going to happen." And he went on and he won over the crowd, and it was like no one was doing that at that time. And to say that, I mean, obviously, black rock and roll, like black artists, absolutely, they are the architects of rock. And Buddy was just right there, and for people listening to his stuff to think, oh yeah, that's just another amazing black artist. It's just some scrawny white dude, from rural Texas, which is just unreal. And nowadays, to do that now, I mean, I feel like there's so many people involved in the music industry and the genres are so saturated that you're not going to get that. You're not going to get the James Brown, bang, this breakthrough sound. It's not happening anymore. And maybe that's because I'm older and I don't, know what my nephews are listening to, but I don't see how you can, being different for the sake of being different doesn't mean your genre is good.
Yeah.
People creating new genre, no, no, it's been done, and I really feel that way. I mean, there's definitely some room for great new artists, but you're not going to get another Buddy Holly. You're not going to get, the Beatles aren't. They're not coming back.
Yeah.
It's just not possible.
It's going to be hard to be original.
Absolutely. It's much harder to be original now, I would say, than back in the day. And, the whole Motown scene, I mean, are you kidding me? Like the music that produced it's never going to happen again, and it can't. There's only so many chords, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. That's what a lot of the country music stars say.
yeah,
Let's switch gears completely here and talk about the career that you began about 10 years ago, and that's moving into real estate. So I
right.
don't know whether that was influenced by the fact that your dad was obviously, besides being a singer, was a salesperson,
Yep.
and your stepmom was, I don't know if she still is a real estate agent
Yeah,
herself.
it still does real estate. She's wind down a little bit, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean that definitely played a part. My dad, he's ever the salesman, right? So I'm definitely not a chip off the old block for that. We love meeting people. My dad, he loved meeting new people. I'm the same way. So whether it's at a show or whether it's at a showing, selling houses, I enjoy it. I'm a people person. I'm definitely an extrovert, and I thrive on, meeting new people. And I love architecture. I love housing. So for me, it was just sort of an easy shift. And the idle thing doesn't hurt. People. They're like, aren't you the guy that, yeah, that's me. Yep.
Yeah.
So, that helps once in a while. But yeah, real estate has been, I got lucky. I started in 2016, and it has just gone insane, obviously, since then. Things are a little slower now compared to COVID, but the market is crazy. Yeah.
Now, you were in Toronto when you started this new career, and you moved north to Goderich at one point. Is that
Yes.
true?
Yes, so my wife Rebecca ran a couple resorts in Bayfield, called the Ashwood Inn and Deer Park Lodge. So it's like a cottage basically on Lake Huron, very tourist community, gorgeous little town, Bayfield. I'm sure some of your listeners have been there. And after 3 years, we bought a house in Goderich, which is about 20 minutes north. And yeah, we just kind of settled into, being regular people, which is not something that we're used to, having 9 to 5s, having a mortgage. We're used to, waking up, getting the tarantulas out of the kitchen, or, dodging the coconuts from the howler monkeys when you're trying to serve dinner. So, for us to go to that was a nice change, and stability it feels good. It
Yeah.
feels good for sure.
Now, you're in a business where you are your own boss, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Somebody told me when I left broadcasting and I moved into what was a sales-oriented job, someone
Yep.
told me as I was leaving that once you do sales, you're not likely to want to do anything else after
Right.
that. And I don't know if that applies. I mean, you
I
still have
think
the
so.
music on the side, but there's selling in that.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. If I were to do anything else, it would probably be in retirement.
Hmm.
My wife she's still very adventurous, so we're always thinking in the back of our minds, could we do another restaurant? She's starting up a kitchen at one of the local breweries here this summer. So we're always kind of looking for that, fun adventure to do. And we're kind of chameleons in the fact that we can wear many different hats.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, we ran a backcountry ski lodge in Whistler, which was insane. 30 feet of snow in one season, no power, was all off grid. I had no experience. I had no idea what the hell I was doing. But
Now, what about the music at this particular point in your life? Are you
yeah,
still doing
so
music and recording and writing
so every
songs?
once in a while, someone will reach out and ask me to do an event. And because I work for myself, I have that ability and that flexibility to book things well in advance. And so I am playing this summer. I'm doing a show for the National Kinsman Convention, I believe is what it's called. I might be getting that mistaken. And so that'll be in August, and I've got a full 6-piece band backing me up on that one. Some of the players are actually my friends from Godridge. He's a real estate broker as well. And this past summer, Canada Day, my band Low Level Flight got together for a reunion show in Loyalist Township for their Canada Day bash. So yeah, I'm still doing it. I'm still writing. It's something I can afford to do for the love of doing it. Where before, when I was in the industry, you can't afford to do it because there's no money in it. That's for sure. Even at my level, the money wasn't great. So you did it because out of the love of doing it, and maybe you're eating frozen pizza for a month and you're sleeping on your buddy's couch, but you did it because you loved it. And I did that. I did that for probably 10 years. And so I think I got that out of my system. And now I'm at the point where I can just afford to take the gig and, pay the band. I don't need to get paid for it. I want to enjoy doing it. In fact, I prefer not to get paid myself, so that way I can kind of make my own rules, and I don't like working for people. So yeah, no, I still love it. I still love performing, and it's wonderful to get on stage.
Is recording something that's in the future as well, or do you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. We moved to Wellington here. We're in Prince Edward County, and two doors down is actually the sister of my bass player from Low Level Flight from Toronto. And I've known her for years. It just coincidentally, she has a studio beside us. So I have a feeling myself and Annalise Nerona, she's a local artist and an incredible producer engineer. We'll be getting together and doing some recording in the near future. I actually have a country album written, ready to go. So it'd be fun to kind of get that recorded just for fun. I feel like country is kind of the genre that the artists go to near the end of their career. Because it's the country music fans are so welcoming and open that it's so nice to just play that stuff for them. Whereas when I was doing indie rock, it had to be cool, it had to be cutting edge. It's a lot of pressure, like I definitely feel like the country music fans are some of the most welcoming and open in the industry, and that's why country music is probably the strongest genre right now in the music industry. So yeah, I mean, take that as you will. Don't listen to the lyrics too hard because they're generally the same for a lot of the songs, but the message is clear and people love it. So I'm here. I'm all for it.
I worked in country radio, and I can guarantee that country fans are dedicated as well. And when
Yes.
they like you for a long time.
Yes, a hundred
Yeah.
percent. Yeah, it's amazing to see the rock artists that have made that transition to country, and they're massive.
Hmm.
Being a pop or rock artist in Canada is difficult because the industry here is kind of eat your own. Unless you make it in the U.S., then they kind of welcome you back, which is kind of weird. But that's a very well known thing in the music industry in
Yeah.
Canada. And I know a ton of artists who your listeners all know who have been sleeping on couches or can't pay their bills. That's just a reality of the music industry in Canada. So, yeah, to see them make that shift into country and actually have a full career just in Canada is amazing. It's so nice to see.
Hmm. You have two major passions in your working life right now, music and real estate.
Yeah,
And I'm wondering over the long term, is one going to work its way to the top, or are you going to try and do both?
that's a good question. I feel like at this point in my life, I've got maybe 10 years left that I want to be working. So, mid 50s, I'd love to be able to just hang it up and maybe focus on music and really um, give it another go. I've already been so blessed and lucky with the music industry. I know that. That's not lost on me. I understand that's not the norm. So I think, if I got another 10 years in real estate, I definitely started saving for retirement late, as most musicians do. Again, luckily, I've had a pretty successful real estate career, so I'm okay. But yeah, I think in 10 years, music will probably be back on top, and I'll just kind of fall into that nice little semi-retired lifestyle. I mean, my wife and I have been very fortunate. We've had that, going to Costa Rica and living there for 3 years, and I could see myself going back to Costa Rica at least part of the year. I picked up skiing again, so winters in Canada have been bearable, and I've enjoyed my time back on the slopes. But come March in the county, I'm like, all right, where's the summer weather here?
That's right.
Even now, it's been brutal, but
I know. I know. Well, listen, all the best as you continue to build the real estate business.
Thanks,
And at
Dave.
the same time, we all look forward to any future contributions you'll be making to the family's musical legacy.
I
Thanks for your
appreciate
time.
it. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Ryan Malcolm was our guest in this episode, singer, traveler, and realtor. Hope you enjoyed the podcast. For those of you who have taken the time to listen, thank you, and I'll be back soon with another conversation.
The theme music for the podcast is Stasis Oasis, written and performed by Kingston musician Tim Aylesworth. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions about any of the episodes, please send a note to thekingstonianpodcast@gmail.com. For details on upcoming guests, follow us on Facebook. The Kingstonian Podcast is hosted by Dave Cunningham and produced in Kingston, Ontario, Canada.